So a couple hours ago, Jaye Williams texted me that he might possibly slightly be drunk, and I was ready to rip into him until I remembered that he was at a visitation.
That's not true. We don't get drunk at visitations. We get drunk at wakes. And one of my favorite podcasting memories of all time was one time when I faked being drunk on an episode of Death to DVR, and you got super mad at me about it. And I wasn't drunk the entire time. And then we just joked about it in our group text afterwards.
How could you? We're supposed to be professionals, Jay. Speaking of professionals, Kristen Smith, what's up?
Hi, I'm also not drunk.
Me too.
Good for you.
Great.
You know, I'm drunk on life. I'm drunk on podcasting. It's good to be back, Ryan. Thanks for asking.
Are you really gonna just start doing that when with someone? None of us are with amongst each other. We're recording this online. I feel like Jay is going to do a lot of that interrupting.
No, we're all in the same room. Like, no one else knows that we're not all just like chilling.
Yeah, not when I produce the show. Nobody knows. But Kristen, you actually just met Jaye Williams. What was that experience like?
It was great. He made me wait like an hour, and yeah, that was my experience. No, so I was picking up my dog from Tennessee, and on my way back, I stopped and got a coffee at some chain of coffee restaurants or whatever.
We're not allowed to talk about that.
They shall not be named, as the overlords have decreed. And yeah, it was great. And he got to meet my dogs, and we talked for a while, and it was fun. But it started getting really cold, and I had to drive another like 5 hours to get home. So,
was he taller or shorter than you expected?
I mean, he's tall, so I taller.
The question was taller or shorter?
I didn't expect him to be a giant.
Okay, very good.
That's right.
This is the first time Jay and I have podcasted in 2018, so I'm very excited about this. I've deemed 2018 the year of the Snell, if anybody is curious. So I'm your good luck charm. Just make sure that you stick with me on After Schmoe or Sight and Sound. And Kristen, I'm glad you're here because we got to settle this thing before we get into the show. And we're running a little bit long. Which of my laughs is supposedly fake? Can you help me? Can you help clarify this?
I mean, which ones of them aren't fake, I suppose, is a good place to start.
I have 9 different laughs, so I'm not sure which. Are they saying they're all fake? Like, I've got the
yeah, that one sounds fake, yeah.
It's more of an antic. I wouldn't call it fake, but it's still a laugh, but it's hard to explain. I've also got
yeah, that's the hissy laugh. Yeah.
Oh, the hissy laugh. Jay, which of my laughs is supposedly fake?
I think all of them.
Welcome to After Schmoe. I'm joined by Jaye Williams. What's up, man?
That's me. A lot of people are asking, why the hell is there an After Schmoe if there was no Schmoe's No Show? Even Ryan Snelling himself was curious about it, but I had a plan the entire time. There's only one way that we were going to be able to realign our episode number with the Schmoe's No Live show, and that was by doing an episode when they didn't have one. So that was my plan the entire time.
Kristen Smith already introduced you, but tell me again, what's up? Are you glad to be back on After Schmoe?
Yeah, I'm happy that you guys had me back, and I mean, like a whole week late. Do you want them to know that this was supposed to be last week or no? Because it was supposed to be, and I sat next to my phone waiting.
Is that a thing? Is that real?
He never talked to me. He never told me when we were going to record.
We made some kind of deal, and I don't remember. Forgive me, I don't remember if it was supposed to be for Sight and Sound or After Schmoe, but I originally forgot to set it up with you, and then I texted you, I think, on Sunday, and I just said, sorry, I suck, and then you didn't even respond for 3 days, and then you said, oh, I didn't say it, so even you were late responding to me.
Well, I did that on purpose, because I was paying you back. Yeah, sure.
Jay, you were in Florida. You had a nice vacation over Christmas. What was that like? I missed you.
There was nothing nice about it. That's not true. There was very little nice about it, but in order for that take, you're going to have to listen to Sight and Sound Weekly this week.
I was going to say, I'm not even privy to any of that at all. Like, I tried to get you to talk to me about it when you were on vacation and you just refused. So I'm very interested in that little nugget that you just gave me. Maybe we should do an after party.
Yeah, listen, vacations are for the weak. I don't take naps, and I don't like to take vacations. It's what I've learned at the age of 30. I like to work. I like to judge those who are lazy around me. Ryan Snelling, I noticed you only put up one video on our YouTube channel, so I don't know what that's about.
I don't think that's true.
You know what? I don't want to hear it.
It's not even true at all.
This was my time for relaxation, and all I was doing was thinking about all of the commentary I could offer to Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis while we were gone.
My God. Anyway, well, we're here to do that now, and I'm glad Kristen is here. It's like, 11 o'clock at night, and I know that both of you have to be up in the morning, so I appreciate your time, as always. Thank you, Kristen. So, Kristen, you were at the fucking Schmoedown Spectacular. I literally saw you on my well, you can see her on her YouTube channel, The Film Smith, but I saw you on Collider Videos YouTube channel, hanging out with all of these people that Jay and I furiously talk about every week. I just kind of want to know a little bit of everything. I want to know what it was like to meet these guys, what it was like to see all of this go down live. I want you to tell me what Dale the Dude is like in person, because that guy's amazing. I want to know everything, and then I want to hear Jay's take on all of it, because Jay and I haven't really gotten to talk about the spectacular either.
Yeah, it's pretty much the most overwhelming experience ever. So like conventions are kind of the same thing, where everything is just like there and crazy and you don't know what to do with yourself. But yeah, it's the same thing there, where there's just a ton of people and everyone's just really cool and super nice. And so you're just walking around, and then you're just like, oh, hello there, Stacey Howard, how are you? And like, you can just talk to her. So that, it was just really fun. And pretty much every single person I met was just really, genuinely a really nice person. And I had some really great conversations with people. And I didn't actually record the majority of them because I kept forgetting to bring my camera with me, and my phone was dead. So I just talked to people, and like my whole purpose out there was to record stuff. So I failed right. Miserably, but I had wonderful conversations with people. And it's nice because you get to know a lot of these people a little better, and you get to kind of understand, when they say they're busy, they're not just saying that. They, like, some of them work, 5 jobs on top of doing the Schmoedown and having a family and everything. And, they are real human beings. And that's something that fans don't always get to see, because we see them on these programs and they just seem like characters, but they're just real people. And super normal too, because we were hanging out the day before with Jay Washington, and like we had dinner with him, and he was just super normal and wanted like 5 dollops of sour cream on his nachos. He kept asking for more sour cream. It was pretty insane.
Who surprised you the most? Whether it be they're exactly who they say they are on screen, or maybe the opposite. Like, what interaction or what person just surprised you the most because whatever?
The most like who they are on screen is probably Mark Ellis. Like, he's just Mark Ellis everywhere. In everything that he does. He's just a nice guy, and there's nothing on camera that could make you think otherwise. The person who's least like what they are on camera, and this is not surprising either, is very much Tom Dagnino. who was super nice. He was so nice. And like, I mean, there was afterwards, we went to like a bar and we were all standing around and I kind of got like trapped in a corner. So I was like squashed behind Ken's chair and like a bunch of other people. And he was kind of standing like next to me and he kind of just turned around and he's like, "Are you trapped? Do you need me to help you?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you." So like, I mean, he was just a nice guy. And I got to talk to him a lot, but he's super involved in these matches and people don't see that. So like the whole time he's like pacing back and forth, which is great when you're trying to take video or pictures and then he just walks into your shot. It's like the best. But like seriously, so involved, and that's something that people don't get to see, and it's a shame because it's really interesting to see kind of what happens, you know, in the background, behind the scenes. It's just as interesting as the matches is.
Jay, is that how you imagined him?
Well, I mean, the real question is, what was he wearing? Was he wearing Gucci? Did he have a Gucci bag? What Yeezys was he wearing? Was he wearing the Reese's cup? Was he wearing the turtle doves, or was it the moon rocks? That's what I really want to know.
I don't. What are you talking about? He was wearing a shirt and pants.
Exactly.
And a hat. And some shoes. No, he had like 7 wardrobe changes. I don't think you understand. Every time I saw him, he was wearing something different.
That sounds like a normal day for me. I've already had 3 myself today.
But yeah, he was hilarious though, and like similar to his on-screen personality in that he's like sarcastic in his humor, but also just super nice and not at all like a big jerk.
Yeah, it's nice to hear. I mean, obviously, I say it's nice to hear, but Ryan and I both know firsthand that Mark is as genuine as he is in person as he is on camera. I think we can both sort of back up those claims because we've both had the pleasure of hanging out with him. But it sort of goes back to the take I had back in the day with, you know, the Andy Signore stuff. It's just like one of the reasons that I trust these people so much is because just of how genuine they are. And my interactions with Mark Ellis have always been nothing but unique to my interactions with Mark Ellis. Like I could never have those interactions with anybody else because he is such a one-of-a-kind person and such a kind and generous person, so much so that he might even send you a Starbucks gift card for Christmas. Just throwing that out there.
The place that shall not be named, I think is what you meant.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, they're doing a lot better now that I'm getting hot drinks. Like, they haven't messed up my cafe mochas at all, but
I agree.
It's the cold. It's the cold drinks.
I think you guys just order some weird shit because I don't have a problem with Starbucks. Like, I get a latte and I ask for 2 Splenda and I get it perfect every time.
Listen, we're not going to do Christian's favorite segments this week. We're not going to do the stream of consciousness notes. We're not going to do the history lesson. And we're in the middle of the episode. So why not just jump right into the new segment called the Starbucks Tip of the Week. This week's Starbucks Tip of the Week is, if you are going to get a latte or a cappuccino, anything with steamed milk, especially if you're trying to go keto like myself, go ahead and ask for that steamed milk to be steamed heavy cream, but only go with a grande, not a venti. I almost said a venti. Grande, not a venti. You will thank me later. And that is your Starbucks Tip of the Week. Back to you, Ryan.
I had a latte earlier this week, and it was just awful. Just terrible. But I didn't have that tip. So maybe I can take that in with me tomorrow when I go and make the very same mistake by walking into those doors. So I need you, Kristen, to help me settle a theory that I have here. And maybe this might have been answered on Carpool or something. But the Star Wars match between not between Ken and Sam.
Oh,
but
the 5-way?
Star Wars match that was filmed that day, right?
No.
Sam Witwer is wearing the exact same outfit.
He's not
That's
wearing
incorrect.
the same outfit.
That's
the
incorrect.
shirt on the 5-way had some weird thing on it that's like a mixture of a porg and something else.
That's right.
And then the other one is still, he only owns red shirts, I'm fairly convinced.
Yes.
But he looks good in red, so I don't blame him.
I made that same mistake at first, and I came to that same conclusion, but upon further inspection, by just paying closer attention, I discovered that that was not the case, unless you just changed shirts that day. But I'm glad that Kristen has backed up that theory.
Yeah, I can confirm it was not the same day because we were literally there. I mean, I went there with Late to the Party and All the Belts and Taylor Robinson, and we all came in as a group, and we were there before a lot of the people were there so that we could we wanted the best seats for filming. And, like, we're selfish individuals. It's cool. But we got there before a lot of people did. And so we were there from like 10:30 to, I think we left probably around 7 p.m. So, I mean, it was a long day. And if you add an additional match onto that with 5 competitors in it, like, that's a lot of setup, and you have to do interviews, and that's just a ton of work. I cannot imagine what that day would have been like.
Were you nervous meeting anybody? Do you get nervous?
Yeah, I did. I got nervous. Surprisingly, like, one of the only people I was like super nervous to just walk up to was Ken, and I don't know why, because he's like, they're all really nice, but he's just like he's just normal person, right? But for some reason,
he seems like he doesn't care about anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. He's fine. But like, I just had a hard time walking up to him and saying anything. So it was like, after his match, and I eventually did go over and talk to him for like 5 seconds, but I was like, hello. It was really, I'm sure he doesn't remember it, but I remember it. It was super awkward. But no, everyone else, like, I just walked right over to Sam Levine, and I was just like, hey, how's it going? Aaliyah wants to talk to you. That was pretty much like my entire day, was just walking straight up to people and saying hi.
I feel like I would just want to ask Sam Levine about all the famous people he's worked with, and it makes me feel bad. Like, I should want to ask Sam Levine about his career and his life, but I'm like, what was Chris Evans like on Not Another Teen Movie?
Well, that's terrible. That's terrible, because he's very interesting. You should, if you ever get a chance to meet him, he is super interesting. And I didn't get a ton of chance to talk to him, but like, after everything was over at the bar, like, just listening to some of his stories, like, he's great.
So, and if you need help clarifying, I'll let Jay ask you any questions he has. If I don't know exactly how to ask this. I guess what I want to know is, what if you're looking at what you see on YouTube every week versus what you actually saw behind the scenes, what's the thing that we wouldn't expect, like, actually goes down, whether it be this person is in charge of this, or you were surprised to see, how much this person has to do this? Like, what's the most shocking thing going from watching a Schmoedown on YouTube to seeing it actually unfold in person? What's the most unique thing about that experience?
I think the amount of people working on them behind the scenes is surprising, because you would expect there to be a big crew, and maybe it was because of the event itself, but there were a ton of people working. And then overall, though, like, Copster pretty much, like, every time I turned around, I thought he was doing something completely different. And so it was like a bunch of people working, but then there was like 10 Copsters, I think. I think he cloned himself for the event. I'm pretty sure. And like, every time he cloned himself, he got grumpier. So, like, just imagine like a really grumpy Copster times 10. It was great. But like, that was surprising. I guess I didn't expect there to be as many people, but then I also didn't expect certain people to be working in so many different roles. But it makes sense if that's kind of their typical setup, to be like, one person is in charge of these things and the rest of the people monitor the sound and what's actually being captured and everything, like, and then making sure graphics and stuff, like, that all makes sense. But and then when we were talking afterwards, they said just how much footage they had and how long they thought it was going to take to edit, and I just, like, I cannot imagine editing for that long. It was an astronomical amount of footage. I was shocked.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much answered the only question I had, it was specifically geared towards Cobster. I know that he obviously has this reputation of being relatively tightly wound. Obviously, it's so much so to where I think it's part of like his character, but I wouldn't say it's a character because it's something that he actually is. But I'm curious. I'd love to ask him this, whether or not he feels like he thrives in that sort of environment just because of how creative he is. I think from watching the Schmoedown live show from week to week and just seeing how smoothly it runs, to sort of see him in that hectic and chaotic of an environment, I think would be a sight to behold, especially if you're more fascinated with some of the behind the scenes stuff. I think it would be great just to have like a microphone on him for the entire event to show some behind the scenes, sort of footage to see him running around.
Yeah, well, if that's it, I guess my final question is, did anybody say anything about Jay and I or After Schmoe? Or?
No.
Yeah, they did, for sure. No, we weren't really
God,
talking.
you should have left it at the joke. You had it, and then you kept going. You should have let that sit there.
No, fine. I don't.
You gotta let it sit there.
Hey, you know what? If I was a stand-up comic, I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys.
That's fair. And as Ellis and Christian pointed out a couple weeks ago, Jay and myself are not comics ourselves. So because Starbucks.
Speak for yourself. That was directed towards you.
Yeah, Jay's the funny one. I'm pretty sure.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. My stoicness is my humor.
I agree.
I want to talk about the fucking Schmoedown, though. It's great to hear this firsthand experience. I think it's fantastic, and I'm sure, Kristen, you've had an abundance of time to talk about it on take 3. Am I correct in that? Have you done all of your? Have you talked as much as you want to about the fallout from the Schmoedown?
You know what's really funny is I actually haven't really talked about it very much at all, because every time they were filming stuff about the Spectacular, I was busy. So the only thing I actually got to do was one of our reactor summits, because Jacob was on vacation and he normally hosts those. So I had to host it, so it was around my schedule. It's the only.
Gotcha.
That's the only time I actually got to do anything around the Spectacular. So I'm more than willing to talk about it. It was great.
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting time right now because this was an absolutely fantastic event. I think that goes without saying. Being able to watch it, I mean, I'm a more. I think this goes without saying. I'm a more casual Schmoedown watcher myself, and I thoroughly enjoy every time I do get to sit down and watch it. But I just found myself locked into every single episode, and I just could not stop it. I think Ryan had a similar take to the event, but my biggest takeaway, and this could be a potential hot take, and I know Christian listens to this, but I've been thinking about this ever since I turned it off. We're in this transition period where the new season, they're starting to prepare it. Christian announced that they're going to be launching the Patreon, which I'm sure we could discuss and talk about. But I want to talk about this Star Wars match, not just a Star Wars match, but the Star Wars belt, a potential Star Wars league, and all of this stuff. I think that going into this new season, I think Christian Harloff really, really does need to focus on building a league specifically for these Star Wars events. And that is solely down to the fact that you can go and watch and there's not a ton of them, but you can watch every single Star Wars match that has ever happened. And every single one of them could potentially end up in like a top 10, maybe even top 15 greatest Schmoedown matches of all time. They're incredibly entertaining. I think that does come down to the fact that Sam Witwer is involved, and I think he's been involved in every single one of them up to this point. And I said last week that I think you can make an argument that he could be a potential pound-for-pound best Schmoedown competitor just because of how technically proficient he is in his performances. I think when you watch these matches, it's great to watch a Schmoedown proper match when you're seeing an abundance of these different categories and this and that, that's showing somebody's versatility and competing in this league. And I think that's great. I think a lot of luck comes with that as well. But when you get down to a more niche category like Star Wars, and when you see the competitors that are competing in these matches, my God, these are absolutely incredible competitors from a technical perspective. I don't know anybody that could have answered these types of questions the way that they did. I didn't even know, and I'm going to give credit to Ken here, I didn't even know that he was going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Sam Witwer in the way that he did. And I'll ask you, Kristen, because you were there, you got to see it in person. Did Ken's performance surprise you in any way?
No, Ken was fantastic. And I think afterwards, I mean, the real deciding factor of this match was the quotes, because Sam Witwer,
yes,
he's an actor, and he's a Star Wars actor, and he's a Star Wars voice actor. He is embedded in the quotes of Star Wars, and he knows them like crazy. And so when you take someone who basically, you know, they know the ins and outs of every single quote ever spoken in Star Wars, and then you pitch it against anyone else, he's going to be better. And that was really what the deciding factor was just, you know, he knows these quotes like the back of his hand. And it's hard for anyone to compete with that, honestly. But Ken knew some things, and I'm pretty sure Sam said this in his post-match interview, but Ken knew things that Sam didn't, and it's kind of just the name of the game. But I'm not surprised at all at how Ken did. It was 100% what I expected it to be, just a super close match and so good. It was like seriously one of the best matches, and I'm so glad I got to see it in person, because like I lost my mind.
Do you share in that sentiment that I brought up, that this Star Wars league could be something that Christian could potentially focus on and building in the future, just because of how thoroughly entertaining every single match is? Do you think that's something that he could potentially do in the future?
So the only issue I see with that is that the question pool that you have for Star Wars is already getting really deep cut. And there's still new movies coming out, and now every year, but at the same time, you have a limited, you know, amount that you can work with. And so I don't know the amount of questions they answered in that Iron Man match, but it was quite a few. And if you look at just the amount of questions that, you know, you have to get from that, it's a lot of things. So if you have an entire league based off of that, I mean, you're getting into territory that is, I mean, that's as deep cut as it's going to get if you have a whole league about that. I would love it, though, because I think that those they get good views, but they also get a lot of people talking, and I think that's great to see the community just talking about these matches and being involved with them, because that's what everyone wants, is to make this something where we're all involved in it and we all feel invested in it.
Absolutely. And I know we got John Rocha in here, and we'll bring him in just a second. What's up, man? I want to make one more point on this here real quick. I know that Christian is heavily invested in the storyline aspect of the Schmoedown, and as he should be. That is an investment in your fan base, considering that that's something that will continuously give despite how well a match performs. You're always going to be there for the storyline aspect, but for the people who do come for the trivia, I think it's a match like some of your heavy hitters in this league who are showcasing just incredible trivia knowledge and prowess that really wows you. When I watch somebody like a Sam Witwer and when I watch somebody like a Ken Knapsack compete in this match, I'm watching tacticians and that are just so knowledgeable, and it wows me. Coming from an MMA background, I love watching technical fighters like Anderson Silva or a Damian Maia jiu-jitsu specialist, and I don't know how to do that shit, but I'm just fascinated by how good they are, and it just wows me. And I think you brought up that great point about the deep cuts of the Star Wars questions, but I think that's sort of what separates the men from the boys to a certain extent. But that's really all I have to say. Ryan, do you have anything about this whole discussion you want to bring in John here?
What is this, After Schmoedown?
That's right.
After Schmoedown is the show that John Rocha has believed that we do over here for quite some time. I'm I'm very glad Rocha is here. I wanted to subtly bring in Rocha, but every time we podcast together, it's he's always doing dishes in the background, so he's always clanging making a lot of noise, making sure that his appearance is known. I'm thrilled to have John Rocha back on. Well, I don't know if he's been on this show officially, but he's always been great to me on first Film Beef and then on Sight and Sound. So John Rocha.
Let's talk about the fact that I never got my Sight and Sound T-shirt, and that's why I haven't come on, because I was insulted and upset that I never got my size large Sight and Sound T-shirt that I could show off at the studio, show off at different Schmoedown matches. And I'm even more insulted that Kristen Smith thought the Star Wars match was more important than the top 10 demolishing team action match.
We didn't get to talk about it.
I was pointing at Kristen Smith when I got tackled, so I kind of blame her for the situation, not being prepared for the speeding bullet that was Andrew Guy.
That's right. I do want to talk about the tackle. I do want to talk about the tackle here in just a moment. But to explain the T-shirt thing, that whole thing, I wish I had control of that situation, because in that package was 5 T-shirts. And I wasn't going to say anything. I kept it on the down low. Jay knows that I did this, but no one else does, apparently. I wrote you 5 personalized thank you cards, and I hand wrote all of them, and they were addressed to each of you with your shirt. And I don't know how that got lost. It wasn't months later. RB3 didn't even know that I had sent a shirt. I've never seen Copster wear his. Not that you all needed to wear them on air. That wasn't the point. It was a thank you gift. But I don't know what the hell happened. I have still not heard the entire story. I just know that I'm totally done sending you guys shit unless I get some other address or I can guarantee that Mark Ellis doesn't go anywhere near it. So there's that. I definitely sent you that black shirt. That's all I can say.
All right. Well, it's a conspiracy. We'll have to figure out. It's a crime. We'll have to figure out who her perpetrator was. So anyway,
before we let Rocha go, Jay was in the middle of his After Schmoedown segment. I didn't know if you had anything.
Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, Jay, I don't know if you have anything for Rocha before we let him go here.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to say is before the match, one of my previews that I gave was that I actually think that, I think Team Action, they're a great team in the Schmoedown for the whole sense that I think they're great characters, but I personally didn't, and I'm not really trying to disrespect them, but I didn't think that they matched up very well with Top 10, simply because you guys and you played this angle very well. You guys brought the experience factor there, and I think they really, really, really got rattled in that match. Could you sort of sense that as you were competing?
Yeah, our approach to the match was different than it was before. I think when we faced them the first time, we let them get under our skin because we were super pissed. These young punks were going to disrespect us the way because they were doing it off camera and on camera. That's what was really tough. Like Ben was like saying little things like, "Oh, Rocha's not taking the match seriously," and Andrew was following his lead, and they were trying to just goad us into a reaction, and they got it, and they brought in X-Pac to do the thing that he did. And we tried to undercut him as much as possible, but we got a little rattled, and they got lucky. So it was a confluence of events. It was just a bunch of things coming together at the right time, a bunch of factors that helped them win. So we knew this time around, whatever the situation was, whatever the stipulation was, that we were going to. We were going to come in with a way different mentality, a more calm, relaxed mentality, confident mentality, knowing that we got what it takes. Plus, they had taken that hit from above the line. And sometimes when you lose in a 5-round match the way they did, the swings throughout that match, it's really hard to get the energy to get back into the ring unless you've done this for a while, as you're a veteran. Sometimes, like when I fought Spectacular last year, I fought 2 matches. I lost the tag team championship with Matt to the Patriots, but then had to fight Mark Riley right after it. So you got to be made of certain kind of stones to understand that you still got to be able to get there and show up. And I almost got destroyed by Riley, and I fought back and won that match. So it's just a matter of you got to have that inner drive right? That inner strength to push back the downtimes. And I think those guys are still a little young because, being older, Matt and I have been through our wars in our own lives, so we know how to bounce back quicker from disappointment. And I think those two kids are still learning how to bounce back. But, they gave it their all. They tried their best to mess with us. Like, Ben, every time he walked by me off camera that day at the Schmoedown Spectacular, he either stepped on my foot or he nudged me or he would hit his shoulder against my shoulder. So finally, when he did it one time, I think it was like 2 or 3 hours into the whole event, I just smacked him in the balls. I just completely smacked him in the balls because I was like, playtime is over. You got all these hits on me. You stepped on my foot. I kept ignoring it. You nudged me. Yeah, Dale the Dude and I were doing interviews. You came up behind us and we're doing stuff in the background, video bombing it, flicking me off. So you're doing little things to mess with me. That's when I knew I had you. Like when he was doing things to mess with me and I wasn't doing anything, that's when I knew I had him because he was trying to intimidate me and motivate himself. And I've been through a lot of trash talking on basketball courts from DC to Virginia to Georgia to California. So I get it. I get when you get under their head, they're doing or get in their mind and get under their skin. They do things to mess with you rather than you doing things to mess with them. And so that's when I knew I had Ben, but all that aside, those guys are the real deal. And they may have a shot at things once Andrew comes back off suspension and they put it back together. If they get a little more training, a little more seasoning, it takes a lot. You got to watch a lot of movies. You got to put this trivia stuff in your body. They may have a shot. So just because they're young doesn't mean they don't have what it takes to get there. Any number of things can happen. Who saw Sam Levine winning both tournaments? So though anything can happen, he was one letter away from losing to me. And here he is, the champion. So there's all kinds of things that can happen in the Schmoedown. So to all credit to those guys for giving us a decent match, not a good match because we whipped the crap out of them, but a decent match. And now we move forward atop that, and maybe somewhere down the line we play those guys again when they're a little more seasoned, and it'll be a colossal ender to the trilogy. And I look forward to it.
For sure. I do have one more question before we let you go.
Sure.
This is obviously the match.
I got to wash 3 dishes.
Yeah. Since the match is done and it's out of the way, you can sort of breathe easier because you guys had this sort of stipulation looming over your head. Just be honest with me here. If you guys would have lost that match and you did have to sort of go your separate ways, I mean, how much of a blow would that have been to both you and Matt? I mean, obviously, you and Matt have different careers as solo competitors, but how difficult would that have been for you guys?
Well, I think it's a good question. To be honest with you, Matt never considered it. Like, Matt never even had a moment or a second and where he thought we were going to lose. And that's the great thing about Matt. And that's why he stabilizes our team so well. People like to put him down and make stupid little cracks like Pizza Man and all that bullshit. But like Matt we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't have been champions without Matt. We wouldn't have beaten the great teams that we've beaten without Matt. Matt is an incredibly strong, stabilizing force. And so for him, he never considered it. So you're asking me the question. And I was worried that it might happen all day, because that's what you do. You never know what can happen. And I said to myself, if this happens, at least we gave it a shot. We tried to beat a team twice and we couldn't do it. If we couldn't do it, we lose as men. And like Matt said, we would stand up, shake their hands, and admit their superiority over us. And then we would take our hit for a year. But I was already working Thad, the commissioner, to find loopholes in the contract that would allow us to come back as a team. But I think it would have been also kind of a well-deserved break for us because we fought a lot as a team against a lot of great teams. We didn't pad our stats with the Night Sisters or Deep Cuts or Perry's team with Jonathan Voico. Our stats are all legitimate, strong teams that we fought at in the prime of their careers as Schmoedown competitors. So you can look at the scalps on our wall, and they are notable. We have hardly any scrubs. The Real Rejects is the closest we've come to a team that would be considered somewhat JV or lesser than the big teams. And everyone else we've faced and beaten. And so it would have been a well-deserved break for us. But what the victory did was it motivated Matt and I. Like, I've never felt more excited to play. And top that may destroy us. Who knows? But I know I'm in a better feeling now to take them on than I was after we lost to team action in the tournament. So it excites me to play again. And Matt feels there's a skip in his step. And that spells danger for any team that faces us, because once we're dialed in, we're fine. And so was I considering what would happen next, finding a new partner? Sure. I had talks with Riley. I had talks with possibly bringing Dan out of retirement.
Oh, wow.
There were talks with other people that I was going to surprise people with. And Christian and I, obviously everything has to go through Christian. So Christian and I would kick around ideas of possible tag team partners for me. And Matt would take a well-deserved break, because it takes a lot out of Matt to come and do these things. He's a very busy man on the weekends and on the weekdays. So it just takes a lot of his time to come and do the Schmoedown. So I think with Matt, he would have been relieved. But seeing the way we beat them, I think Matt is now dialed back into the tournament, or not to the tournament, but to the Schmoedown, and dialed back into us becoming champions again. Because we want those Patriots so bad. And I know people are like, oh, how many times are we going to see Rocha and Nost or top 10? The reason we are in contention isn't because we're friends with Christian. It's because we beat good teams of quality. And so if we can beat top that, then no one, and I mean no one, can say shit about our abilities to beat and our deserved right to face the Patriots. And when we face the Patriots the third time, like Joe Namath in Super Bowl III, I guarantee you we will beat them. We are destined to get our belts back from the team that took them from us in the first place. And when Sam Levine did not get the Soylent Green question right, I looked at Matt Nost and I said, that's destiny. That's destiny. When they didn't get the remember the Titans question right, I looked at Matt Nost and said, that's destiny. We're going to take the belts back. So for us, we feel nothing but confident and excited to play. And we look forward to taking on Team IGN. We're not overlooking them. Those guys are incredibly intelligent men about film. So it's going to be a hell of a match. But we really think we've got a shot to take them down and then take on the Patriots and whoop their butts this time.
Just want to make a general thank you to you for entertaining us and doing so well in the Schmoedown, the Spectacular, and your match was fantastic. We had a lot of fun. I sat there, I watched that entire 6-hour thing in one sitting. I could not get enough of it. We have Kristen Smith in here, and I hear that you all have an interesting relationship. Is that right?
She's a bit of a smartass.
No, I would never. Not to you.
Please. No, I like Kristen. Kristen's great, and she's done so much work for us on the Top 10 show that we can't thank her enough. And we thank her on every episode, her and Chris Alexakos and Jen Kemp whenever she's involved with it. But it's there are people who come along who are real supportive of the things you do, and Kristen's one of them. And honestly, we can't thank her enough. And it was great to meet her in person at the Spectacular and meet all the people, but really Kristen and Taylor and the Take 3 people, and of course all the belts. Like, those are the people that I really was excited to meet the most, and I had such a great time being around.
My personal favorite is Dale the Dude, though. I mean, my God, that guy's
he's something else. He's
what a gem. What a gem that guy is.
Yeah.
He's like a rising star for sure.
Well, there's something coming from Dale the Dude that I think all of you are going to be blown away by. Dale has created something, and if we can work out getting it put up somewhere, it's going to be, you guys are going to love it. So
I'm so excited. He's about to put out that whole behind-the-scenes video too, right? He announced it on his Twitter. Did you see that?
I maybe saw it. So
okay. Very good.
I'm letting you know it's an incredible piece of work, and I think we're negotiating to put it up somewhere a little more prominently than his Twitter.
Awesome.
So we shall see if it works out.
Rocha, Jay, and I every week break down everything going on at Collider. We're excited, looking forward into 2018. Before we let you go, can you give us a little tease, what we should be expecting, what we should look forward to as fans of Collider Video?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're constantly coming up with new ideas for shows. We're constantly exploring possibilities. There's been talks with certain directors and actors of certain big franchises to come on to certain shows on the network. I know those are starting to happen. We had a visit from one of the name actors in a particular long-running series that's on AMC who came and visited us today, and we might be working on something with him. So there's a lot coming down the pike. We've revamped Movie Talk. We'll see if that's going to be how we keep going. Movie Talk, a little more combative, a little more agree disagree, kind of talking about things. There's a couple of shows that are coming down the pike that if the pilots come off without a hitch and we like the way they look, then we're going to start putting those up on the channel. So there'll be more of that. Movie reviews is going to change, and we're possibly looking at expanding in a certain way. And so there's a lot that could happen, but we got to navigate the next couple of weeks, I think, a little bit. So that before we start putting stuff in place and start announcing things and start showing you all things. But there are some changes coming in a lot of ways to Collider because you can't be successful just sitting back on your laurels and being okay with where you're at. You got to always strive for more. I've said that personally, so it's great to be part of a company that wants to do that as well.
You guys know to check out Outlaw Nation. You guys know to check out the Top 10 show. Watch John Rocha and Collider video. Thank you for your time. I know that this was unexpected and last minute. I greatly appreciate you hanging out with us for a little bit, and I hope to talk to you again very soon, man.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me on, and it's great to be on. And I look forward to talking to you guys again as well.
Have a good night, buddy.
You too. Take care.
Okay, so that was great. Again, thanks to Rocha. All right, well, let's finish up. We'll talk a little bit about some Collider stuff before we go. Not a whole lot, but Movie Talk was a lot different this week, mainly because Ellis has been out sick. I hope that he's feeling better. I hope he's on his way to a speedy recovery. I guess it's Friday. I hope he's still not sick at this point. So yeah, he didn't host, and that left Christian in the hot seat. And we've talked a little bit about it on this show about what it's like when how different Movie Talk can be when those two people host. It can be pretty different. The one thing that I noticed, because Jay and I always like to talk about what they do or what they change at Collider Video, the ideas that they get from this show. And Jay and I have talked a lot about making it discussion based. I've a long time ago I talked about how buy or sell is actually just nothing. It's a segment, it's a way to break up the show, but ultimately the content inside buy or sell is literally the exact same as the two headlining stories. So I even though it's hilarious that they're making fun of Christian for changing it up a little bit, I like that they're changing that, or at least in the process of doing so. And I don't know, who knows, when Ellis comes back, maybe he'll go back to buy or sell. But ultimately, buy or sell is it's just nothing, and that's always been my take on it. I know a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people post about how much they're enjoying this week of Movie Talk and how absurd it's been in its own right. Kristen, I don't know how much Movie Talk you watched this week. I wanted to know what you thought about all this.
I watch everything. Come on.
Everything?
You know me.
Oh, you're one of those people. Okay.
Okay.
I watch everything. But no, I usually watch it at work because it's good background noise, but it's more it's more interesting than what I'm working on the majority of the time. But yeah, no, this week I thought has been great. Unfortunate that Mark isn't there and that he's in some weird hospital. I'm not sure where he's at. It looks like he's in a hotel lobby, but he's got an IV drip.
Is he?
He posted a picture on Twitter, and he's got an IV, and he's sitting in a chair. He looks like he's in
I did not see that.
Concierge lounge. I don't even know where he's at.
Oh my goodness, I have not seen that. You're blowing my mind right now.
I don't have inside knowledge or anything, but what I can confirm is that in California, you can actually use an app to order a doctor to come to your home or wherever you're at, and they just come with an IV bag, and they replenish your body with electrolytes and fluids. This is
what?
Yeah, this is factual information. I've seen it. Not with my own eyes, but actually I guess I've heard about it more than anything. I don't know. I can't confirm if that's what he's doing, but I don't want him to be in the hospital like with, AIDS or something like that. So.
Wow, you just jumped right to AIDS.
Yeah, I did. I just went right there. I don't know why. It was the most prominent. It's the most famous disease that I could think of off the top of my head.
Jesus.
And it's late.
The most famous disease. Very good.
I also just have the flu. I have no idea. Sorry about that.
Okay, so back to movie talk. I mean, I am sad that Ellis isn't there because I love when Ellis hosts because he just adds like a nice layer of comedy to everything he does.
He's the better host. Let's not dance around it. He's the better host.
Yeah, listen, I was
not better, different. And the way that he hosts is he's facilitating a conversation, and he wants people to talk about other people's points. And Mark makes everyone stay on topic and has the wonderful, beautiful segues. And, he's the better traditional host, right? But as a facilitator of conversation, I think that this week, Christian has done a great job. And I've really enjoyed just hearing everyone, have their back and forth and not just, here's my point, next person, here's my point. Like, I think it's been great.
Yeah, and I think going back to like sort of the complaints of the segmenting and the buy or sell, I mean, yeah, you could definitely say that movie talk might be a little bit stiff in that regard when it comes to how Ellis hosts or whatever, but I do think that that's the most proper way. I do think it's funny, and again, this is an observation. This is just me poking fun at Christian. I don't care that he does this. This isn't. I think it's funny, especially when you watch him host Jedi Council. When that camera turns on, it's as if he has nothing prepared. None of his intros are ever the same on Jedi Council. It's like, hey, what you doing? This is Star Wars. What's up? It's so on the fly, and it's always so clunky. And of course, when he hosts something like the Schmoe's No Show, I mean, it's perfect. But it's just so funny to see how different they are as hosts and how they approach it when that camera turns on. It's just funny to see that. But I do like the fact that he's trying to change up the formatting of it. Jay, you seem to be on my side though, that you prefer Ellis.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was about to sort of tiptoe into this, and it seems like we're all sort of on the same page. I think my takeaway is similar to the both of your alls. It is more of an observation, but I think they just bring different things to the table. What I'm thankful for this week is that Christian brought the ideas to the table to shake things up a little bit. However, if I'm just being completely honest about it, I think he'd probably agree with this too and admit this. Mark is the more seamless host. He's the more smooth sort of host. He can get in and out of things a little bit more smooth. That could be down to the fact that he's a full-time stand-up comedian as well. He's sort of a little bit more smooth around the edges with that. But the thing that sort of caught me off guard it was the fact that Christian, when he does host Jedi Council, I agree with you, Ryan. I think he leans very heavily on somebody like a Ken to sort of direct the show with the news and the notes, and then he sort of just runs with it from there. And that's what we had this week on Movie Talk. We had Ken reading those notes, but even Ken was sort of stumbling a little bit just because he might have been out of his element just with the format of the show.
That's a very hard job, and we barely talk about like Mova and Sinead. Like, that is a really hard job. I mean, I have a hard time hosting this show, so I can't imagine reading the show notes every day and being as flawless
of course
as
it
they
is,
are.
But it is similar to what he does on Jedi Council. So that's why I think it's so interesting. It's not too far removed. But again, what I will say is, I would love for them to sort of incorporate these sort of changes, maybe smooth them out a little bit and refine them. But I am very interested in seeing how Ellis sort of executes it, because I think he can do it a little bit seamless. You know what I'm saying? And that's nothing against what Christian's done. I just think that Mark has just been doing it longer, so he's a little bit better at it. And that's just pure. I'm not going to say facts, but that's sort of what it is. He's just been doing it for a little bit longer.
Okay. What a terrible.
You all right over there? You having trouble? You having trouble putting this?
No, that was just me highlighting the fact again that it's very hard to host shows.
Yeah, you got to work on those segues.
No, I genuinely thought you were going to set yourself up for the point that you wanted to bring.
Okay, sure, we'll do that. Actually, I have 2 points real quick that I want to bring up. I mentioned this on Twitter that I was going to talk about it. Very interesting that we had. I'm a big fan of these sort of breaking news videos that they do. It's often that Ken is the one that's doing it, but this week we had the news that came out that Kendrick Lamar is actually going to be curating the soundtrack for the Black Panther film, which is actually really not only big movie news, it's actually big music news as well. So it's very fascinating for me personally, somebody who comes from the music space, to actually see this covered on Collider. But we got John Rocha was the one that hosted the video, and he actually brought Jay Washington on. It's the first time I've ever seen Jay Washington on a Collider video outside of maybe he's been on Heroes or something like that, but outside of the Schmoedown, and man, did they both kill it. Absolutely crushed this video, crushed this news story. It made me super proud as a music fan to see this covered in the way that it was. So definitely shout out to both of those guys for nailing that. But the other sort of the other topic that I wanted to bring up that I was thinking about this week was that in 2018, with all the changes going on at Collider, I've sort of noticed over the time that I've been paying attention to the channel, they don't really focus too much on pushing the actual characters themselves, quote unquote, the individuals on the channel, as much as they do just delivering the news. You know, nobody is really front and center. Obviously, you could potentially say somebody like a John Campea was, just because he was on Collider so much. You could probably say that Christian and Mark have been pushed a little bit because so much time and maybe even money has been invested in them on the channel as well. But for the most part, we don't really see individuals, their characters really pushed as much. Maybe even Josh McCouga to a certain extent, even though he's not doing as much now. And I'll ask you, Ryan, first. Maybe you can sort of interpret this how you will. Do you think Collider should be investing more into individual specific characters and building them up? Maybe an individual gaining a following and a fan base and launching a show, or do you think they should be focused on primarily delivering the news?
I think one of the reasons why something like the Schmoedown is so strong is because you have people coming from the outside inward to hang out with our main crew, and that's also just the way that you get everything at Collider to grow, right? Like we just saw Christian appear on ETC. He was able to talk about the Schmoedown in that outlet and maybe bring in a completely new audience. So I think that is crucial. It's just, I don't know how easy it is though. And I know that there's a lot that kind of goes into it, particularly just even the recording schedules. We kind of talked about how it might affect getting guests when they were doing Daily Heroes. When it came to, like, I was surprised Robert Meyer Burnett came in every day to just do a 20-minute show. And we saw less of people like Jason Inman and Ashley Victoria Robinson and people like that with that format. So I don't know how easy or practical it is to get more people involved in a regular way, but I do think it's what they should be focusing on, and it's absolutely crucial. How do you see it, Kristen?
I mean, I agree with you. I think it needs to be a good mix, though, because they have to focus on what their channel is built on initially, right? So, like, the news is what a lot of people are watching them for. That's how a lot of people get their movie news or their comic book news or whatever, right? And so, like, not focusing on that would be a mistake, but trying to have people on who are more individual, I think, is something that I have always really enjoyed when they have guests on. And yeah, that Jay Washington thing was just ridiculously good. And I mean, when you get people from outside, you also gain a chunk of their fan base as well. So from a marketing standpoint, like, that's just good business. But it lends to broader discussion too. So you don't hear the same opinions every time someone's talking. You hear a really broad scope of the world. And the other thing that I kind of miss is with like TV talk being on, you had more females present in the discussion. And I mean, you still get Perry and movie talk, and you still get Sinead and the people who are like hosting the shows, and they've done such a good job bringing the host into the discussion since they moved to just the one table. And I love that, and I love that they transferred from the host just kind of reading the news to actually having a part of the discussion. But at the same time, with the absence of some of these supplementary shows like Nightmares or TV Talk, or whenever Heroes comes back, that'll be good. But there's all these opportunities to have new points of view and to get different people on. And especially if you're trying to reach out to certain demographics and audiences, like have more females on, have more people of color on, and so it's one of those things that I think that they definitely need to work on building the individual character more, as well as focusing on what they're built on, which is covering the news, covering what's going on in entertainment and giving their insight on it. And I think that's what makes the channel great, but it could be better with some more varied commentary.
I think that's a great point that she's making too. And it's not like they haven't done this. I mean, we can look back to somebody like a Jeremy Johns, who they brought in. They were sort of trying to bring him in and sort of ride his wave as well by bringing his audience over, and they built Awesome Tacular off of that as well. And there's also some indirect influence I think they have. You look at something like Comic Book Shopping with Schnepp, or even as much as Ken has been involved as of late with things outside of their standard everyday programming, like the Game of Thrones sort of history lessons he's been giving, and the Star Wars stuff he's been doing as well. And Josh McCuga has done a lot of individual videos as well. I also think there is a little bit on the individual themselves. To one of the reasons why Mark and Christian are such prominent personalities is because they have Schmoe's No, they have the Schmoedown, they have SK Plus stuff as well, where people are literally talking about them on an entire podcast network. And I think there's some indirect stuff going on there, but I just wonder if maybe in the future, if they ever try a Jeremy Johns type of experiment again, if it wouldn't be better to invest that time, invest that money by building within, as opposed to spending that time and money and bringing somebody from the outside. Ryan, back to you.
I do like your question, but I don't agree that like one is at the, how do I want to phrase it? I don't think it has to be one or the other. Like there can be a balance of both, right? Still delivering the news while, So, and again, I haven't seen the video that you're referring to today, but I heard that it's great. And I think that that's something that, again, talking about all of the many things that we have to look forward to in 2018, I think that that's something we will see more and more of. I mean, I do think, I've said it before, I do think that Collider has, maybe not on purpose, but it does have a diversity problem. And I'm also completely aware that I'm saying that hosting a episode of a podcast with 3 white people, but I would like to see.
I've actually never been on board with that criticism, if I'm being completely honest, with the diversity thing. I actually think they're more diverse than people give them credit for. They have an abundance of Latino people on their show. Obviously, I think African American representation could be better.
Well, maybe it just depends on what you're talking about, right? Like if the crew of the Schmoe's No Show is primarily Latino. Like, I know that, but like on Movie Talk today, well, Rocha, I think Rocha hosted today, but Mark, Christian, Perry, I'm not acting like they're the devil, and I'm not acting like it's on purpose. I do think
and
that they could do better.
You're not the one that's saying that. There's people, that's been something that's been a popular thing to say. I just don't know if it's necessarily been unpacked to its fullest extent.
I totally agree with you, and I brought up diversity in my comment, and I didn't mean it as a full criticism, but I think that whenever you can increase diversity in these conversations, you gain a whole lot more, and there's nothing wrong with their setup now. I mean, I think personally, like, I've defended them a lot when people are like, there's not enough female presence on your shows. I'm like, they're doing a great job bringing people in. You just have to understand, like, they're taking the steps so that their hosts can be in the conversation. Not every show does that.
Sure.
But I mean,
Go ahead.
I agree with you guys. I think they're doing a good job with diversity now, but there's always room to improve. There's always room to branch out more.
Agreed.
Besides Dennis and Wendy, you don't have very many Asians on your show. You know, you don't have really any African Americans on the show. There's certain areas of diversity that they aren't really getting into, and those are parts of the country that have really interesting, cultures and backgrounds, and they can bring all that into these shows. And I think it's something that I think would benefit the shows.
Let me rework what I've said. I'll rework my approach here. What I would like to see, and what I would like Collider to be unanimously known for, is to sort of pave the way for that, to be the most diverse crew on YouTube. Like, that's what I would like to see. I would like them to set the example, right? I'm more comfortable saying it that way, because again, I'm not like trying to paint them as the devil. They're far from it. I know for a fact that Ellis and Christian are mindful of that already, and they don't need me to remind them of that. But I would just like to see them like just really kill it in that department. And it's sort of heartbreaking. And again, I'm not saying that there's connective tissue as far as the relationship with Collider Video per se, but it really puts things into perspective if you follow someone like a Jay Washington who recently has been crying out for more diversity, and it's sort of heartbreaking to see it, because he is good at what he does, and he's a talented dude, and he's an intelligent dude. And I don't know. I would like to see someone like a Jay Washington and all the other people like him have their shot as well. And maybe if it's not at Collider Video, maybe it's starting their own thing too. And I know that there's like what Joelle is a part of with Black Girl Nerds. Is that what it's called? Is it Black Girl Nerds? Or so I know. So I would like to see that. I'm fine with that existing, but I would also like to see maybe a new thing pop up that brings something new to the table, and it's just sort of a melting pot. And I don't know. I think that that's definitely important. So,
yeah, I think that's sort of the big cherry on top of this whole conversation, is that I definitely think that's something that the entire crew over there is mindful of. I mean, they've said as much, and I think they're doing a good job as it is. It's something that I think, going into 2018 and just moving forward, it's good to maybe just remind the rest of the audience that it's something that they're mindful of, and that everybody can be better at being a little bit more diverse. And one of the things that I celebrate, not only Collider but Schmoes as well, is that they are giving platforms to people to build their own careers off of. I mean, think about how many people are known specifically for the Schmoedown that can go on to really support their own career. You know what I'm saying? You have somebody like a Brianne Chandler, what she's been doing with Schmoes for a long time. I mean, since back in 2013, 14, when she was a early supporter of the Schmoes crew. It's an exciting time. I love all the cool stuff that they do for all the people that help them out, and they sort of give back as well. So I just think it's a good thing.
What an episode of After Schmoe. we had Kristen on. She talked to us about the Spectacular. Rocha, a filler. We started out thinking it was a filler episode just to increase the digit of the episode count. But what an interesting show that we had tonight. Kristen, I want to thank you for joining us as always. Thank you for spending time with us. Jay, I think I don't want to get too emotional here, but we're coming up on 2 full years of me hosting this show, and you've been here a while too. And talking about speaking of the help that Collider Video and Schmoedown have given to people, and sort of building their brands and their platforms, and I mean, we're examples of that as well. And I'm very appreciative to still be here, and very thankful to SK Plus and Schmoedown and Collider Video. Glad that we're lucky enough to be here. Jaye Williams, where can the people find you online?
You can find me never getting emotional over at Jaye Williams, J to the A to the Y to the E on Twitter and Instagram. It's the same for both. You can also find me on Sight and Sound doing my thing with Ryan Snelling. I just released my top 25 album of the year list on our YouTube channel. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, head on over there. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That would be fantastic if we could do that as soon as possible. I kind of need to get some new lighting equipment, and you subscribing isn't going to help that at all, but regardless, it would be nice. And I do a music show every single Friday, so come and hang out with me. We're doing things. That's my new sign-off thing. Kristen Smith, where can they find you on social media?
Well, you can find me, I don't know, places. Trolling Facebook pages and reading comments. So just, don't say anything mean.
Somebody's got to do it.
I read a lot of things. I feel like I read so much and I barely post anymore because all I do is read the comments. But I'm reading them and I'm watching you. You know who you are. But you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Stardust at Smith_K10, the number, not the word. You can also find me on Take 3 Productions YouTube page, doing their live watch-alongs and also involved in all of their Schmoedown content, and also my personal YouTube channel, which I try and do stuff on occasionally, which is just The Film Smith. All over the place, everywhere.
You can find me on Twitter.
Ryan, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WhatUpSnell. I would like to openly invite anyone to the Sight and Sound Facebook group. That link is in the description below. It's another one of those things that Kristen Smith has been non-existent in the past few weeks, so definitely come check her out there. And we love you. Here's to a great 2018. Thank you, Schmoeville. We'll see you next week.